The gym buzzed with energy as people powered through their workouts, running on treadmills, lifting weights, and participating in fitness classes. It was an ordinary day until someone unexpected walked through the doors. Jason Statham. The action star, known for his intense roles and peak physical fitness, entered wearing a simple black hoodie and sweatpants. He moved quietly, blending into the background so seamlessly that most people didn't even notice him at first. That changed when Ryan, a loud and overly confident trainer, spotted him. Known for his brash behavior, Ryan thrived on attention and wasn't one to pass up an opportunity to put someone in the spotlight, especially if it meant boosting his own ego. Seeing Jason, he couldn't resist making a joke. With a smirk, he called out loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear, "Hey, buddy, you lost or something? This is a gym, not a library." A few gym members chuckled, though some glanced at Jason with curiosity. Jason, however, remained unfazed. He continued stretching, focused solely on preparing for his workout. Ryan wasn't about to let the moment pass. He strutted over, arms crossed, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Are you sure you know what you're doing here? Those sweatpants make it look like you're here for yoga, not weights." Laughter rippled through the gym as Ryan puffed out his chest, basking in the attention, but Jason stayed calm. Rising from his stretch, he met Ryan's gaze and simply said, "Just here to work out." For a brief second, Ryan was thrown off, but he quickly recovered, taking Jason's quiet confidence as a challenge. He wasn't about to let some newcomer steal the spotlight in his domain. "All right, Mr. Silent Type," Ryan said, his voice loud and theatrical. "Let's see what you're made of. How about we start with something simple?" Little did Ryan know he was about to get a lesson in strength, humility, and respect, one that no one in the gym would ever forget. Ryan smirked, crossing his arms as he eyed Jason. "All right, tough guy," he said, his voice carrying across the gym. "Let's see how you handle some dumbbells." Jason met Ryan's gaze, his expression unreadable. He didn't flinch at the challenge, nor did he seem the least bit intimidated by Ryan's cocky demeanor. Instead, he gave a small nod and walked toward the dumbbell rack. The gym gradually fell quieter. More and more people began to take notice of the unfolding interaction, pausing their workouts to watch. Ryan followed closely, still talking, his voice laced with sarcasm. "You know, technique is everything," he said with a chuckle. "Wouldn't want you embarrassing yourself in front of everyone." A few onlookers laughed, but Jason remained unfazed. He selected a pair of medium-weight dumbbells, testing their balance in his hands before beginning a set of bicep curls. His form was impeccable. Elbows tucked, movement smooth and controlled, breathing steady. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply working out. Ryan, unimpressed, shook his head. "Come on, man," he scoffed. "That's beginner stuff. You planning to warm up all day?" Grinning, he grabbed a heavier set of dumbbells and performed an exaggerated version of the exercise, showing off with dramatic movements. "This is how you do it. Watch and learn." Jason calmly set his dumbbells down. He looked at Ryan, his expression as composed as ever. "I'm good, thanks," he said evenly. Ryan wasn't ready to let go. The growing crowd only fueled his need to keep the attention on himself. He clapped his hands together, grinning. All right, maybe dumbbells aren't your thing. Let's move on to something real. How about some deadlifts?" He gestured toward a barbell already loaded with a challenging amount of weight. "Let's see if you can handle some real iron," the gym-goers murmured among themselves, excitement building. Jason glanced at the barbell, then walked over without a word. Ryan leaned against a nearby machine, arms crossed. "Careful," he teased. "That's not a lightweight bar. You sure you know what you're doing?" Jason positioned himself in front of the barbell, adjusting his stance and grip with quiet precision. The gym fell completely silent. The tension in the air was almost tangible. Then, in one fluid motion, Jason lifted the barbell off the ground. His form was flawless, his back straight, his core engaged, his breathing steady. He held the weight for a brief moment before lowering it in a controlled manner. Then he repeated the lift. And again. Each repetition was as effortless as the last. The murmurs of the crowd turned into whispers of astonishment. Ryan's smirk wavered. He had expected Jason to struggle, maybe even fail. But instead, the action star was lifting with ease, his technique near perfect. Trying to recover, Ryan clapped his hands together and forced a grin. Not bad, he said. But anyone can do a few deadlifts. Let's see if you've got endurance. He motioned toward the punching bag in the corner of the gym. How about some cardio? You look like you might know your way around a punching bag. Or is that too much for you? Jason set down the barbell and turned toward the bag. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes, an intensity that made the crowd lean in with anticipation. He walked over, adjusted his stance, and raised his fists. The gym-goers could barely contain their excitement. Jason had handled the mockery with patience so far, but everyone could sense that things were about to get a lot more interesting. Ryan, still eager to prove his dominance, stepped up to the bag first. All right, watch and learn, he said, throwing a few exaggerated punches. His strikes were more for show than power, but his loyal followers clapped and whistled. Jason watched quietly, his expression unreadable. Then he stepped forward, taking his place in front of the bag. The moment his first punch landed, the energy in the gym shifted. Thud. The sound echoed through the room. His punch was sharp, precise, and devastatingly fast. Thud, thud, thud. His fists became a blur. Each strike landed with precision and power, the heavy bag jolting violently with every impact. The gym was completely silent now, eyes locked on Jason. Ryan's smirk disappeared entirely. This wasn't just skill. This was something else. And for the first time, Ryan realized he might have seriously underestimated the quiet man in the hoodie. The sheer power behind Jason's movements was impossible to ignore. He alternated between punches, elbows, and kicks, his strikes precise and devastating. It wasn't just raw strength on display. It was skill, a level of mastery that left the onlookers in stunned silence. The more Jason worked the heavy bag, the clearer it became that he was no amateur. His movements were fluid, almost like a choreographed dance, yet carried the undeniable intensity of someone who had trained for years. Sweat glistened on his brow, but his focus never wavered. Ryan's smug grin faded. He crossed his arms, trying to mask his discomfort as the reality of Jason's ability set in. All right, he called out loudly, breaking the silence. Not bad for a warm-up, but speed is one thing, power is another. Jason stopped mid-strike and turned to face Ryan. His expression remained calm, but there was a subtle intensity in his gaze, something that made the crowd lean in with anticipation. Without a word, he stepped back toward the bag and repositioned himself. Then, with one explosive kick, he sent the heavy bag swinging violently, the chain above groaning under the force. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Ryan's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to respond, but hesitated, searching for a way to regain control of the situation. Okay, tough guy, he said, his voice noticeably less confident. But this isn't a boxing gym. Let's get back to the weights. Show me what you've got with something serious, something no one here would dare attempt. The gym-goers exchanged glances, unsure of how Ryan was planning to recover from this. Still, they followed the two men to the weightlifting area, eager to see what challenge would come next. Ryan stopped at the squat rack, pointing to a barbell loaded with an intimidating amount of weight. How about this? He asked, forcing an air of nonchalance. Think you can handle it? Jason approached the squat rack, eyeing the barbell as if calculating something in his mind. The crowd held their breath, waiting to see if he would back down or rise to the challenge yet again. Without hesitation, Jason stepped under the bar, positioned it across his shoulders, and slowly lifted it off the rack. His movements were deliberate, controlled. Even before he started, it was clear. He wasn't just handling the weight. He was owning it. As he descended into his first squat, the gym fell silent once more. Each repetition was flawless, his muscles working in perfect harmony to manage the enormous load. By the time Jason racked the barbell, the crowd erupted into applause. Ryan, now visibly flustered, forced a tight-lipped nod. "Not bad," he muttered, his earlier confidence all but gone. "But anyone can lift weights. Real fitness is about endurance and agility." Jason didn't respond. He simply walked over to the pull-up bar. Without a word, he gripped it and began a series of pull-ups, effortlessly. Wide grip, narrow grip, even one-handed variations. The crowd erupted into louder cheers with every set. Ryan, now desperate to salvage his pride, called out, "All right, that's enough. Let's wrap this up with a real challenge." He pointed toward the battle ropes. "You think you're tough? Let's see what you've got." Jason walked over, picked up the thick ropes without hesitation, and began. At first, steady waves, controlled, rhythmic. Then, in a sudden burst of energy, he switched to slams. Each impact thundered through the gym, sending vibrations through the floor. The sheer force behind each movement left the crowd in awe. As Jason finished and set the ropes down, the gym erupted into cheers. Ryan, unable to mask his frustration, stepped forward as if to say something, but the look in Jason's eyes stopped him. It wasn't arrogance or anger, just quiet, undeniable confidence. Whispers spread through the crowd as they exchanged glances. Ryan, once the center of attention, now seemed small in comparison. His bravado had been overshadowed by something far more powerful. Jason's composure, skill and strength. Still refusing to accept defeat, Ryan turned to the deadlift station. A barbell sat on the ground, stacked with plates heavy enough to give even the most seasoned lifters pause. "All right, hotshot," Ryan said, forcing a smirk. "This is real strength. Let's see if you can handle it." Jason stepped forward, his expression unreadable. He looked at the weight, then at Ryan. Without a word, he positioned himself, adjusted his stance, and gripped the bar. The gym fell silent. Jason took a deep breath, tightened his core, then lifted. The barbell rose smoothly from the ground. His muscles tensed, his body locked into perfect form, his face showing no sign of struggle, only control. He held the weight at the top for a moment before lowering it back down with the same precision. A stunned hush filled the gym. Ryan's forced smirk wavered. He had expected Jason to struggle, maybe even fail. Instead, he had executed the lift flawlessly, making it look easy. But before Ryan could say anything, Jason stepped back up to the bar. He added more weight. Gasps echoed through the gym. The plates clanked into place, the sheer load now reaching an intimidating level. Even some of the strongest lifters in the gym exchanged nervous glances. They knew this wasn't just heavy. This was a test of true strength. Once again, Jason positioned himself. His grip tightened, his focus sharpened, and then he lifted. The crowd erupted. The barbell rose smoothly. Once more, proving beyond any doubt that Jason wasn't just strong, he was in a league of his own. As he locked out the lift, even those who had initially sided with Ryan couldn't hide their admiration. Ryan, standing off to the side, had gone completely silent, but Jason wasn't done. As the barbell settled back onto the ground, he turned to Ryan. "You wanted to see strength," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Now let's see yours." A challenge. But this time, it wasn't coming from Ryan. Ryan's face paled slightly. He looked at the weight Jason had just lifted, then back at Jason, and in that moment he knew there was no way he could match it about being the kind of person others could respect. As Ryan stood there, reflecting on everything that had happened, he realized that his strength had always been about proving something, to himself, to others. But Jason had shown him that true strength wasn't about proving anything. It was about self-mastery, about knowing when to push and when to step back. The gym slowly returned to normal, the clanking of weights and hum of conversation filling the space once more. But the energy had shifted. People exchanged knowing glances, still buzzing with the realization of who Jason really was. More than his fame, though, it was his attitude that had left an impression. Ryan exhaled, his posture a little less rigid, his expression a little less cocky. He wasn't sure what would come next, but for the first time in a long while, He felt the need to be better. Not just stronger, but better. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew this was a lesson he wouldn't forget. Respect wasn't something you demanded. It was something you earned through your actions and the way you treated others. For the gym members, this moment would stay with them. Many had once admired Ryan's confidence, but now they saw things differently. True strength wasn't about putting others down. It was about lifting them up. One of the younger gym-goers, who had always felt anxious working out in front of Ryan, felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He realized he had nothing to fear. Jason's actions had shown that even the strongest people could be kind, and that real confidence came from within, not from tearing others down. This moment served as a lesson to everyone. Never judge someone based on appearances and never underestimate quiet strength. The loudest person in the room isn't always the strongest. In the end, patience, humility, and respect will always prevail. As Jason walked out of the gym, he didn't need applause or recognition. He had done what he always did, stayed true to himself. And that, more than anything, was what left everyone in awe.